Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. As I was doing more research into the beta male white supremacist who participated in the mass slaughter of 50 Muslims in New Zealand, I began to see a pattern emerging in his behavior, similar to what I discussed in my book, The Man Crisis. And one of the things that I quickly identified as related to this mass murderer was his perception of things, something I talked about in a chapter where I talk about the concept of rose-colored glasses. Because when it comes down to many of these beta males, whether they be raised by a single mother or a two-parent home with a single mother and a beta male father, in most cases, these men see the world from a very distorted perspective. And the reason why they see the world from a completely distorted perspective is due to the gynocentric perception they have of the world. And that world, it looks like our world. However, many of the things in that world are completely distorted and completely warped. Now, this beta male mass shooter, his perception was the main reason why he was motivated to participate in this mass shooting. And when you listen to his statements, they clearly do not make any logical sense. Now, this beta male says that his motivations for participating in the mass slaughter of all of those Muslims was he got inspired by black conservative Candace Owens, and he said that his motivation for participating in this murder was civil war in the United States of America. He wanted to start a civil war in the United States of America, even though he was an Australian citizen living in New Zealand, and he was murdering Muslims who have absolutely nothing to do with the United States of America. When you take a critical examination of his motivations, again, they make absolutely no logical sense, because Candace Owens is a black conservative who lives in the United States of America, and yes, she has made some really ridiculous statements about how Hitler was right, and then you have this guy, again, the people he's slaughtering have absolutely no connection to the United States of America, because the Muslim migrant issue is something many conservatives have as related to Europe and European countries who have imported all of these Muslim migrants in Africa. So how does that have anything to do with the United States of America? And how would that spark a civil war in the United States of America? It makes absolutely no logical sense to anyone outside of the beta male. Now, when it comes down to these beta males, a lot of people will listen to that argument and say, oh, this man is mentally ill. And that is far from the case when it comes down to the beta male. In many cases, the beta male is of completely sound mind, just like your Elliot Rodger was completely of sound mind, and your Stephen Paddock was of completely sound mind. Because when it comes down to the beta male, again, their perception of the world is based on the way they have been raised by females and the way they have been raised by males who are beta males, because their view of the world, again, is one that is completely distorted, and it does not follow any sort of facts, logic, or reason. It is a perception of the world based on emotion, and their emotional state is, again, of clearly sound mind. So they go out here and act on their distorted beliefs and ideas, and they have these ideas, again, that make no logical sense. How does a civil war in America going to get kicked off as related to issues that are happening in New Zealand? The only in a beta male's mind does that make sense, because when it comes down to the beta male,
he has these ideas, he imagines of things, and he has these ideas that he wants to see come to pass, but he doesn't understand how the real world works because he thinks like a female. And when it comes down to many of these beta male white supremacists, like this one in Christchurch, New Zealand, who participated in this slaughter, they have this delusion as related to civil war. And this is one of the things that I talked about in the man crisis that could possibly lead to civil war, because this beta male, one of the things that he cannot do is meet his own needs. And the beta male can't meet his own needs because he has been taught these feminine life skills. And because he has feminine life skills, he's expecting others to go out here and meet his needs. And when they don't do it, this is what leads to them becoming frustrated. This is what leads to them becoming angry. And they go out here and looking for a scapegoat to blame for them not being able to meet their needs. But the core problem with this beta male has to do with the way this beta male has been raised. Because many of these white supremacists out here, many of them do not have the life and survival skills out here. They have never been taught how to go out here and work. So they want to go out here and find somebody to blame for their feelings of inadequacy and their shortcomings. And instead of them buckling down and going to work, they want to find somebody to blame. And usually it is somebody, whether it be blacks, Asians, Hispanics, or Muslims. They're always looking for someone to blame for their poor station in life, instead of putting their nose to the grindstone, putting their boots to the ground, and stepping up. And they don't want to step up because if they have to step up, that means they have to be on the same level as everyone else. And this is another thing that your beta male white supremacists don't want to be. They don't want to be on the same level as a black man, a Hispanic man, an Asian man, or an Arab man, because they believe in this lie known as white supremacy, and they see these wealthy white people at the top. They want the lifestyles of those white people, and they want the power of those white people. And this is why they are so angry, because they do not have the economic power of those white people. They do not have the privilege of those white people. And they are in the same position as all of the other minorities. And this is the thing that makes them want to buy into the concept of white supremacy, a covert contract where they believe if they give the wealthy a pass for their racism and oppression, they will be able to benefit from any privileges that they get just for having white skin. And this is what your white supremacists believe. Unfortunately, what's been happening over the last decade is many of these beta males are finding out that the covert contract they had with the wealthy has been rescinded by those wealthy people. And those wealthy people no longer see them in the same way they used to see white people in the past. Because old school white supremacists, they would give white people who were poorer than them a middle semblance of a middle class lifestyle by offering them preferential treatment for jobs and offering them opportunities at employment so that they could have a chance at that middle class lifestyle. But those white supremacists are no longer offering that because they are looking to use other minorities as a cheap labor pool, and using that cheap labor pool is something that they consider more economically beneficial to them because they are more interested in generating more wealth for themselves. So they no longer care about concepts like white supremacy or white hegemony. They are all about profitability, and they're into this whole concept of globalization. And that's got a lot of these beta males really upset at minorities, when in actuality they should be directing their anger at the wealthy. And really, they should when as I see it, yeah, they should be directing their anger at the wealthy because they were the ones who rescinded the covert contract. But the beta white males don't want to deal with the fact that they've been betrayed by the same white people who they want to get favor for. And what they want to do is, again, continue to get this covert contract in play. But the covert contract is no longer in play because they are pushing this whole globalization agenda, and they're looking to farm out labor to all of these other sources. And that's what's got a lot of these beta males upset, and that's what got a lot of these beta males now talking about things like civil war. Unfortunately, this is another idea that is in the beta male's head as related to things, because in many cases these beta males have not been raised with any sort of life skills. They have not been raised with any sort of survival skills. Yes, a lot of these beta males know how to use guns and they know how to load guns, but they do not understand the whole concept of war. And this is something that is related to this beta male, because he will sit there and watch these movies and where they're having these combat scenes, and he'll go out here and he'll play these first-person shooter video games, and that's what it seems like with this guy. He was live streaming his murders on Facebook. He was doing that for attention, and that's something beta males do. They do this stuff for attention, and they hope to inspire others. This guy was inspired by other mass shooters, and he wanted to inspire others to rise to do this whole Civil War thing. But again, this is an idea that was all in the beta male's head. The beta male didn't understand the reality of things, and a lot of these white supremacists who are beta, in most cases, they're all beta males, they don't understand the whole concept of civil war. You hear them talking about civil war, but they don't really understand the concept of what a civil war would bring to a place like the United States of America, because the Civil War was the bloodiest war in all of the world. It killed more people than World War II, World War I, and the impact of the Civil War, it didn't really help the Confederate States of America. Their economy never really recovered after the Civil War, and the people who were in charge of those areas, they were so corrupt it wasn't funny. So those beta males, they thought they were going to make things better for themselves, but they didn't make things better in the long run. And a war in the United States would not make anything better, because these beta males, yes, they can fire these high-powered automatic weapons, but many of these beta males just don't have male life skills like those soldiers in the Civil War had, because at least they had fathers in their lives who could teach them. And those men knew how to live off the land. These beta males today, most of them come from single mother households, or they come from households with these beta male fathers. And again, yes, they know how to use guns, but they do not know how to survive. Because in a combat situation, many of the resources that the beta male needs for his everyday life, like internet, phone, water, food, and shelter, all of that is going to be gone. And this is something that is going to really give the beta male a wake-up call when he runs into that situation, if they call themselves trying to start a civil war. Because in that situation, it is every man for himself. And if we have a guerrilla-type civil war where it's people in different neighborhoods fighting each other, we're going to see a situation that's going to be a complete disaster. And everybody's talking this stuff, but these beta males don't understand the reality of things, because they live in a world of rose-colored glasses. They believe if they kill all the minorities, America will be great again. And even these white supremacists in these other countries believe these idiotic notions, and it all comes from that rose-colored view of the world where they believe that they're going to get this white supremacy, this white hegemony, and they don't see the bigger picture of things, of how the wealthy did mess things up, because it was the wealthy who sponsored and supported feminism, and it was the wealthy who put white women in jobs because they wanted to have a consumer base that would always be consuming products, and it was the wealthy who gave white females more and more economic power, and it was the wealthy who gave the white female power, because she is the one who has a majority of the votes. She is the one who has a majority of the jobs. She is the one who controls a majority of the resources. And many of these white males, they feel emasculated, but they're going out here pointing the finger at minorities, saying that they were the ones who took their jobs, when in actuality, it was the wealthy who shifted the resources around and gave women power, because they wanted to gain a consumer base that would consistently give them more money over time. So they wanted to be able to get to the person who would go out here and give them a higher return on the investment for their dollar, because if the man is controlling the dollars, that means a lot of products they can't sell to people. Moreover, a lot of agendas they can't sell to people, like your far left ideas or your ideas as related to things like socialism, because that's another thing that these beta males don't like about our current thing with the Civil War. They want to go and take our American system and turn it into a socialist system, because another trait of beta males is they don't like to work. When it comes down to the beta male, he wants somebody to do for him, but he doesn't want to do for himself. So with this whole Civil War thing, he's thinking he's going to kill all of these minorities and take those resources, because he doesn't want to work for those resources, and he's too cowardly to confront the wealthy to demand that they go out here and give him opportunities that were taken from him, and give him things that were supposed to be given to him in that covert contract that they had with the wealthy. That's the big issue with many of these beta males out here. They want to be able to have that middle-class lifestyle that their grandfathers and fathers had, and they're finding that covert contract they had with wealthy whites is over, and they want to find an easy scapegoat to blame, but there is no easy scapegoat to blame, and they don't have the courage to confront those individuals. So they want to call themselves having a civil war where they go after minorities instead, and that's similar to what the Ku Klux Klan did back in the days of Jim Crow, when they terrorized black people. They would sit there and try to destroy black people's businesses and black people's lives, and they would do things like bomb black towns like they did with Black Wall Street. But that did not improve the quality of their lives in any way, shape, or form. And that's par for the course when it comes down to these beta white males. The beta white male, as long as he can make sure somebody is more miserable than he is comfortable in his position as a white person, because he feels that as long as he has these two covert contracts going on, a possibility of winning favor with the white wealthy, and another covert contract where minorities will stay in their place, he feels content, because his world is a smooth world, and in that smooth world, he can imagine himself as the one on top in that world, or having an opportunity at being on top. And that's why you hear all of these beta males sitting here talking about civil war, because they are not getting their needs met by the wealthy, and they don't have the courage to confront the wealthy. And that, again, is very similar to what transpired after the Civil War, because after the Civil War, we saw all of these robber barons coming up, and many of these beta males did not want to confront those wealthy people. They wanted to have their covert contract, so they created terrorist organizations like the Ku Klux Klan to go after black people, and they didn't understand that it was those same wealthy people who were the ones who were undercutting their wages. It was those same wealthy people who were denying them opportunities, and it was those same wealthy people who were using women and minorities back then to depress wages in the exact same way they use them right now with things like your H-1B visas and things like hiring women to replace men. Because in most workplaces, we have majority women in the workplace, and they are being used to lower wages and provide that high return on investment to those corporate owners, because they know if the woman works, they are going to get more money, because she is not only going to spend her money, she's going to spend the money of 4 or 5 other guys, because women have more than one source of income, and all of those sources are all going to go back to that wealthy guy. And that's something that the beta males who participate in mass shootings like this white supremacist in New Zealand don't get about things, because they have been raised to see the world through rose-colored glasses. They have not taken a red pill, and they have not seen the true reality as related to economics or related to politics. So they want to start a civil war, not understanding the bigger picture about war, not understanding the consequences of war, and not understanding the horrors of war, because for many of these guys, they have been playing these video games like your Battlefield, whatever it is, and games like your Call of Duty, and they think that the world is going to play just like Call of Duty or Battlefield, like this guy did, where he was streaming his murders on Facebook. They're thinking that a war is going to be like that, where they're going to be able to stream their battles. They're going to act like first-person shooters. They think it's going to be like a video game, not understanding in the real world, people with weapons fire back, and people who can fire back can fight back. And this is another thing your beta male doesn't understand about the concept of war. When people fight back, it's not going to be pretty, and it's a possibility that he can lose, because yes, in a video game, he's always set up to win, and beta males are used to being set up to win, because your wars are created on specified parameters in these video games and patterns in those video games. But in the real world, it doesn't work like that, and that was a hard lesson many in America learned with Vietnam, and that's something I believe many of these beta males will learn if they call themselves trying to usher in a second civil war, is they're going to learn the hard way that in the real world, people will fight back, and they're going to have to learn how to either go out here and work, because if you start a war, you may not survive that war, and there's a possibility you might lose. If you want to learn more about these dysfunctional behaviors that these beta males participate in, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle, and you can also pick it up on Smashwords and the iBookstore and Barnes & Noble as well. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. The ISIS graphic novel Indiegogo is live. Help me publish the first comic book featuring the goddess next door by putting in a pledge today.